Hi, hello, from wherever you're watching, from Nigeria, from Ghana, from Sierra Leone, from the Gambia, from Kenya, yes. Welcome once again to the TEA. How have your classes been? Hope you enjoyed your first class. For those of us that had our introduction class prior to this video, hope you enjoyed your first class. Hope it wasn't stressful. Hope you loved your facilitators. I'm sure you did. Okay. So welcome to the mind development module / general professional course of the TEA. Okay. So I'm not the one taking this particular course. I'm just taking you a bit on your mind development. Then I'll be handing over to Jane to continue with the professional course. So she'll be teaching us today on mind management. But before we switch over to Jane, I want to take this time to explain properly what the mind assessment classes and general professional classes are all about, right? Please pay proper attention. So, just as we mentioned during the orientation, the mind development module holds every single day. All right, it's not live. You'll simply be given a module to study, and then you take your assessment on it. Now, as I mentioned, mind development is very, very, very key. Okay, it's very, very key throughout the course of this academy. So, how does it work? The mind development module, it's all of 20, right? From the beginning of the academy to the end of it. So the mind development modules totals at 30 points. That is, the assessment for each day could be 1 or 2 points daily, all right, depending on how the module for that day is. Okay. Then for the general professional classes, you'll be having one professional class every week, which means a total of 3 throughout the course of the academy. Okay, so these professional classes, they are worth 4 to 5 marks each, and please, it is compulsory. You're not supposed to miss them, because this is actually the pinnacle. This is driving force of whatever skill you have. If you don't have the necessary soft skill, your hard skill is as good as irrelevant, actually. Okay, you won't get the opportunity to establish and expand yourself if you don't have supporting soft skills, right? So I think I've done my due diligence to explain about the mind development and modules and the general classes. I'm going to leave you with one very important statement today. Okay, hold it. This is it. Your mind is very powerful. You can never be greater than your mind. The state of your mind is what determines who you are, what you become. How you think is how you are. You can if you think you are. Some of us know that book. Actually, before you can accomplish anything physically, before you can be anywhere physically, you must have first conquered that place in your mind. Your mind is not you. Your mind is a tool you have that you must master, and you can use to achieve and accomplish anything you want. And then finally, how far you can think, the extent of your vision, okay, will be the boundary of anything you want to accomplish in life. Will be the boundary of the things that come to you, the people that come around you, your achievements. So your mind is powerful. Your mind is powerful. And with the proper training, with the proper development, you can harness the full potential of your mind. Because truly, in life, there's nothing big enough to stop you, except you yourself. Thank you.
Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you from wherever you're joining from. My name is Jane Akasili, and I'm going to be your facilitators for this evening's session. And I'd like to say congratulations first of all to each and every one of you that made it to the Tech Empowerment Academy. I hope that you have been having a wonderful time in each and every one of your classes. Now, this is a general class, and I believe that everyone that is watching is one who has made up their mind and decided to do well in every areas of their lives. So I welcome each and every one of you, and I hope that you have an amazing time. In today's session, we are going to be talking about time management. I know, as I mentioned it, many of you are saying, I need this so much. Yes, this is what I need at the moment. And, having to coach a lot of young people on time management, I've understood that this is one skill that many neglect, but then they need a whole lot. And I'm glad to be the person that will be teaching each and every one of you, or coaching each and every one of you on this particular subject. So let's dive right into it. First of all, what is time management? I think we're going to begin with that. Before we, go into anything, it's important that we understand what the concept itself is about. Before I begin to share whatever it is I want to share with young people, I'll always say one thing, and I think I should say it to you guys as well. What differentiates you from the person that isn't watching this video or the person that isn't participating in this class is not exactly what you get, but how you apply what you have gotten. So just make sure that everything that you learn in this class is not just something that you write on your notepad or something that you learn and then you do nothing with it. Because let me just say the saying that I will always say, which is knowledge is power, but then it has been redefined. We have understood that knowledge in itself is not power. It is the application of that knowledge that is power. So it's important that whatever it is that you learn in this class, you apply, especially in the area of time management. So let's dive into it. First of all, what is time management? In order for you to just have a simple term of it, let's just define it as doing the right things at the right time. Now, doing the right things at the right time is one challenge that a lot of young people have. It's either you're doing the wrong thing at the wrong time or the right thing at the wrong time. So it's important that you learn how to do the right things at the right time, and that's where time management comes in. Now, there are different areas and there are different aspects of time management, but for this particular class, now this is part one. In subsequent classes, we're probably going to have other areas of time management that we'll look into. So this is just some sort of intro into this particular course, into this particular topic. So let's quickly dive into the different aspects of time management I'm going to be sharing in this particular class. So I've simply defined time management to you as doing the right things at the right time. One of the things that one of my mentors would say is that for you to be able to manage your time properly, you must be able to manage your life. So would say time management plus mind management equals life management. That's a formula that many successful people that you see out there have used, being able to manage their time and being able to manage their mind. It is generally managing their life as a whole. It's worked for a lot of people. I'm very sure that it's going to work for you as well. So while we're not talking about mind management today, I know there's going to be another class for that. Let us focus on where we are right now. So now let's look at the different aspects of time management. First of all, we have planning, right? In time management, it's very important that you understand planning. Now, planning is very, very, very important in every area, every aspect of your life. There's a saying that goes that if you fail to plan, that means that you have planned to fail. That's to show how important planning is to every young person. So whether you're a student, whether you're a professional, whatever category that you fall into, you must understand that every area of your life must be planned. Now, one of the things that's helped me as a time management coach is being able to plan myself. I do a lot of things. Well, I think I didn't introduce myself at the beginning, but aside being a time management coach, another thing I do is an event and operations manager and the founder of a social impact organization. And then I'm still a student, and so there are so many things that goes on in my life. But one of the ways I've been able to manage them is planning each and every one of them. Now, so there are different ways to plan, and I'll just list them out to you. I'm just hoping that there's enough time to go into other things. So in planning, you have to learn to plan with God. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced a time where you plan to do something. Maybe at the beginning of the day, you plan to do like 15 things, and then when the day ended, you're trying to look through the things that you've done, and you notice that, oh, you probably were just able to do about 15 things, 10 things rather, from the 15, or maybe just 5, and you're wondering, okay, I had enough time, so what happened? What if what happened was that you didn't exactly put whatever it is that you had planned to God first? It is very, very important. The Bible says that many are the desires of a man's heart, but only the plans of God will be established. So you can desire to do a lot of things. You can desire to, achieve a lot of things, be productive in a particular day. But it's also very important that you commit them to God so that the Spirit of God can guide you in it. In time management, putting God first is very, very important, because that's one way that you can be extra productive, more productive than your peers, more productive than those that are around you. Very, very important. So planning in prayer. So when you wake up in the morning, the first things that you're supposed to do is, okay, these are the things that I know I want to do. You have them in your head. These are the things that I know I want to do. Now the next thing to do is to go ahead and pray concerning these things, so that the Spirit of God can guide you as to, sometimes you can write down 20 things, and maybe your capacity at the time maybe can only carry 5 of these things. So instead of eventually getting frustrated at the end of the day when you're not able to achieve these things, it's important that you plan with God, you plan in prayer. And then number 2 is planning in writing. Now what many people will do is just plan in their head. Believe me, this has been tested and proven. Believe me when I say that it does not work. And you can try for yourself. I'm a very practical person, so I would always like that whatever I say is being tried out and then you see the result of it. Planning in your head never works. So if you want to learn how to properly manage your time, it's important that you learn how to plan in writing. So it's either your digital notepad, it's either your physical notepad. Just make sure that whatever it is you're doing, you are writing them down. And another very quick tip that I'd like to give you is that when you want to plan your day, make sure that you plan either a night before or the morning before the day starts. If you start planning your day at the middle of the day, you will end up having a very unproductive day. So it's either you plan the night before or early in the morning as soon as you wake up. That way you have a very, very productive day, right? So I would in fact advise that it is done the day before, because there's a study that actually shows that if you're able to plan a day before, when you're going to bed and all of that process helps you have enough time for your subconscious mind to think through processes to achieve those particular things that you've written down. Alright, so it's very important that you plan in writing, and it's either a day before or a night before rather, or the morning when you wake up. Very, very important. So plan in writing. Now the third word, which is also very important, is to plan in order, right? And that's where prioritization comes in. Planning in order. The reason why a lot of people plan and then they don't eventually get productive is because they didn't plan in order, right? So it's important that whatever it is that you have planned to do are in order of priority, are in scale of preferences. So maybe you plan to do 10 things in a day. Of those 10 things, what are the most important? Those most important comes first. What are the slightly important? Those ones come next. Then what are the ones that you can maybe do without? They come last. What are the ones that you can eliminate completely? They come last, right? So it's important that you plan in order. Make sure that everything that it is that you're doing is in accordance or in alignment with how you want your day to be. Time management is actually a very, very sensitive aspect of your life, especially for a young person who has a purpose, because you can end up wasting months and years of your life not fulfilling your purpose, and then eventually you get to a point where you are wondering, okay, so what have I done in the past 5 months? What have I done in the past 7 months, past 1 year? It is because you have not exactly learned how to properly manage your time. That's why all of these things that I'm sharing with you, it's important that you actually pay attention to them, and not just pay attention. Like I said earlier, make sure that you plan to, now remember I said planning again, make sure that you plan to apply them, right? So don't just listen and say, okay, I've heard it, what next? What next is to actually apply these things. Very, very important. All right, so now let's move into the next part of it, which is prioritization. I already touched a bit on it in planning, the aspect of planning, but that's when I talked about planning in order. Now, prioritization is actually very important because it's one thing to plan and it's another thing to prioritize. And in the area of prioritization, you notice that many people don't actually do well. So people know how to plan, but then they don't know how to prioritize. So you find them writing a load of things that they want to achieve in a particular thing, but then eventually they don't even know where to start. So I had a particular client who I was working with one time. She's a professional, and then the major issue that she had was being able to do the things that she writes down to do. So our issue is not even having to write them down. Our issue is not even having to plan them. Our issue is having to start. And that's where prioritization comes in. Prioritization actually helps you to start whatever it is that you have written down, whatever it is that you have planned to do. So in prioritizing, all you need to do is to make sure that you do the most important things first, and then go ahead to do every other thing that you have written down to do. So now let's look at some techniques, right, in prioritization. Very first one, which is the most important, and it's actually the one that I'm going to dwell on in this particular class because of time, is the ABCDE rule. Now I know you have probably heard this many times, but I can count from the people that have heard this many times how many of them actually apply it. So again, it's one thing to hear and it's another thing to apply, right? So the ABCDE method is a very, very effective prioritization technique, especially for people that are students and professionals at the same time, because now you are in two different worlds. You're in a professional world, you're in the student world. Each and every one of these worlds have different things or different time that you have to allocate to them to make sure that you're effective in those both areas, right? So the ABCDE method or the ABCDE rule actually helps you to achieve this. So now let's look at it. Let's explain it very briefly. We have A, B, C, D, E, right? So your A tasks now are your important tasks that have very, very much consequences when they are not done. Now, so think of tasks like, as a student, maybe an assignment that carries some grades. So you know that if that assignment is not done, those grades are probably lost. That's your A task. So if you're putting down the list of things that you need to do, that probably has to be the first thing that you do because it's an A task. That's how you prioritize. Now we look at the B task. Now the B tasks are those tasks that are equally important, but then again, they do not have as much consequences as the B task, as the A task rather. So say maybe doing your chores. Now doing your chores are very important, of course, but especially if you're living alone, there may not exactly be so much consequences, right, if it is not exactly done. So it's very important that tasks like that are probably being put after the A task. So maybe after you do the assignment that has some grades attached to it, you know that it's time limited. After that is done, you move to your B task. Now your C task are tasks that needs to be done, but they do not have consequences, right? Those are tasks that you can probably move to the later part of your day, right, so that the A task and the B task can be accomplished. Now I need to move very fast because of time. Now let's look at the D task. The D task are tasks that you can delegate, just as the D implies, tasks that you can delegate. So as a professional, for instance, this works more for professionals. So as a professional, you probably have some tasks at work or wherever it is that you work, maybe in your company, in your organization, on your team, and there are some tasks that have probably been assigned to you. But because of the ABC task that you currently have, you do not have enough time to accomplish the D task. Now the D task are tasks that you can hand over to somebody else and then monitor that it gets done. Delegation is another very important aspect, and it needs to be done rightly. Maybe in our subsequent classes we'll look into delegation properly. But then the E task, which is the final one, are tasks that can be eliminated. So let's say one of the things that you plan to do in the day is probably to go visit a friend, right? That can be a task, right? So after you have gone through your A, B, C task, now visiting a friend is not so important. You can do it another day, of course, except if it has some consequences attached to it, but I don't think that it should or it would. So those are your E-tasks. The E-tasks are tasks that can be eliminated, that can be done some other time. So now this order of prioritization helps you to actually get very, very productive. Now you're no longer doing the things that you're not supposed to do. You're no longer doing the wrong things at the right time or the right things at the wrong time or whatever, right? You're doing everything that you're supposed to do at every point in time the right way. Very, very important. So that's it for prioritization. Now let's look into another very important aspect, and then we'll call it a day for this particular class. Let's look at one of the things that actually make a lot of people unproductive, whether you're a student, you're a professional, or what have you. It is the issue of overcommitment. And then I think it's one thing that as young people we need to tackle a whole lot. Learning to say no. Very, very important, right? So we live in a world where there is a lot of distractions. Even when you have very important things to do, there are other things that come up that are may not exactly be so important, but you want to attend to them, probably because of the fear of missing out, probably because you do not want to disappoint the person that is giving you these things or whatever it is. And then that's where overcommitment comes in. Overcommitment is one of the things that makes people very, very unproductive. So as a young person, it's very important that you learn how to say no. Now, in learning how to say no, I always tell people that I talk to that in learning how to say no, it's also important that you learn how to say no strategically. So you don't just say no like that. So somebody tells you to do something, the person is probably trusting you in an assignment, and then you're like, no, I can't do it. It's very important that you learn how to say no strategically. I used to tell people that when I first started learning how to say no, I didn't used to. But when I started to do it, one of the things I had to do was to go online and search how I can say no without being rude or without being impolite. That was how intentional I was about it, right? So you can also do same because it helped me. You can also do same. So it's important that when you're saying no, you first of all identify whether that particular task or that particular assignment that is being given to you, you have the capacity to do it. If you have the capacity to do it, very much then go ahead. But if you do not, if you have looked at the task that you have in your order of prioritization, and then you have seen that these are things that you will not necessarily be able to do, in order for you not to disappoint yourself and not to disappoint the other person, and be very productive in the other things that you have planned to do, then you say no. So it's very important that we understand that, right? And in the area of overcommitment, it also has to do with understanding what you were born for, understanding the purpose that you're living in. There's some things that you do not necessarily have to do. I, for one, there are some things that I do not do. There are some places I do not go. You cannot just come now as a friend, as my friend, and invite me for a party and expect me to be there when I have so many other things, and when I have deadlines to be met, when I have team meetings to attend to, when I have some people to train, when I have a vision to bring to life. No, right? So in learning to say no, you also have to understand your purpose. You have to understand what you were called to be, who you were called to be, what you were called for. And in that time, you get to realize that there are some certain things that do not worth your time. There are some certain things that do not worth your attention. So instead of overcommitting to them, you learn to say no. These are ways that you can actually be very productive. So just to do a quick recap, we talked about planning, and I gave you several things under planning. I hope that you remember them. We talked about prioritization. I gave you the number one prioritization technique. I think that you should actually apply it. And then, of course, we talked about overcommitment and learning to say no. Now that brings me to the end of my class today. I hope that you learned a whole lot, and not just learned, you are actually making plans to apply these things, put them to work, and see results in them. I believe that we're going to have a part 2 of this time management class, and in that part 2 class, I will be talking about several other things under time management and will delve deeper. So just take this as an introduction, and I hope that you enjoyed it very much. So I'll see you in my next class. Have a wonderful day. Bye.